Hello everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Dungeons and Bagels, where we learn how to make the most out of our pen and paper experience. Alright, so in the last episode, we started discussing getting a group together. It's pretty important to have players because you cannot play tabletop RPGs alone. It's a fact, it's not something you can play by yourself. You need friends to get over in order to have the full experience. Now, we talked about getting a group going. Now, how about getting a world going? Now, it's very important to understand that the players are going to be evolving in your world. So you want it to be interesting. You want it to have a life. And that's why today we're going to be talking about non-player characters. In short, NPCs. Now, what is an NPC? Basically, an NPC represents anything that is not played by the player, which means everything you will be playing. So we could count their simple peasants, quest givers, allies they would recruit, and also villains. All of those are forms of NPCs. Monsters could also be considered as NPCs, for they are non-player and might have their own driving motives. The thing with NPCs is, since you are the one creating them, it's very easy to fall into a lot of traps, and we'll be going over a few of these traps that you might fall under while creating an NPC for your campaign. Alright, so first of all, we're going to go over the general uses of NPCs. One of the major ones is the quest giver, I like to call it. An NPC in a position either of power somewhere, or just someone that stands out. An NPC that stands out in regards to his community is there and gives you a quest. He is the one that comes up to you and is like, "Sire, our land has been plagued by an ogre, capturing our children and eating them." See, he just gave you a quest. You didn't even have to give him a name back then, but in the best case scenario, you would either give him a name or describe him in a way so that the players remember him. That's also a very important thing about NPCs, having them being remembered. One of the ways you can do this is by giving the NPC a name. That always works. Call him Marcus the Carpenter, for example. They'll remember Marcus. A good way to make sure that it sticks to them, make him memorable. He needs to be described. I would keep it to maybe 2-3 physical attributes. For example, color of the hair, facial feature, and something about his clothing. Let's say Marcus has curly red hair. He also has a very prominent nose and is dressed in rags. So they can remember him as Marcus the Carpenter, Marcus the Redhead, Marcus the guy with a big nose, or Rags guy. So that's just a way for them to picture him a bit more. You don't want to go overly into details either, because players will just get lost in description, and they like to imagine the NPCs themselves. They really do enjoy taking your little hints of description, and then they just shape the world to their own liking. Give them this freedom. So, NPCs as quest givers, that's out of the way. We also have NPCs as story drivers, I would say. These NPCs might not be met per se, but they might be in the background. Let's say the group of players are actually a group of mercenaries, and they work under the service of, we'll call him Victor Shadowhand. And Shadowhand often sends them letters telling them, here is your next mission. You will be on your way to doing this. I would require this of you. They might never meet the guy, but he still, in a way, drives the story. Also, same thing with kings and so on and so forth. People to rescue, those are story drivers, NPC. They might never be met, but they give a purpose to the world. They give it flesh. They give it life. A world without NPC would pretty much be like a group of survivors after an apocalypse. They'd be the last 3 people standing on Earth, and there would be nothing else than flatlands upon flatlands and mountains at the distance. Now, that gets boring pretty fast. Another role for NPCs actually is your own presence in the game. Now, don't get me wrong on this. Your own presence in the game does not mean you will be leading the characters. When you have a NPC join the party, he might bring his own set of skills. Let's say you bring a rogue into the party because they didn't have one. So he brings his sneaking skills, his lockpicking skills, stealth skills, all of that jazz. He has a lot of options. What you want to avoid doing is having him make the decisions. Let's make this pretty simple. You see a dark corridor in front of you. Well, the party sees a dark corridor. At this point, they have a choice. Do we walk down the corridor? Do we sneak down the corridor? The NPC should never be the one to take the decision. He should not take the initiative to say, guys, I'm going to go sneak in front of you all, look for traps, make sure everything is safe, and then you can follow me. The player characters will need to ask him, Luke, would you kindly go forward in this corridor and make sure it is safe for us? The big difference here. The result is the same. However, in the first scenario, players were just overlooking the situation. It was just there. It was pre-programmed. Whereas in the second one, they actually made a choice. They decided that the NPC would go looking for traps. They gave him purpose. In a way, the NPC in a party group is sort of like an extra resource. It's your way of making sure, hey, the group has some shortcomings, we're going to give them a little something. Another trap you can fall into when you actually add a non-player character to the group is not respecting what I call the PSI concept, PSI. This stands for power, style, and items. The NPC needs to be regulated on these three elements. Very simple. Power. His character level should never surpass the character level of the group. How would you feel being a level 4 and having a level 10 NPC being the only reason you can go through the encounters? It's not satisfying. You have no merit for killing the enemies. I'd rather be a level 1 facing orcs than a level 1 facing a huge dragon with the help of someone that's overpowered. It's just not the same feeling. The NPC needs to be there to help, not to drive the whole thing. I mean, the people come around the table in order to play, not to listen to you talk and be the actors. Actually, the background actors, actually, they want to be forward. No one likes to be upstaged. Why would you want to be upstaged? I mean, do you not trust your players? You need to trust your players. They need to be the ones to make the decisions. On the style aspect, you are the game master. You have pretty much every right in the game as long as it's fun. If you judge a rule is not to your liking, you can change it. And the same goes for NPCs. If you want him to have a special ability, you can give him the special ability. You want the guy to be able to shoot fire out of his mouth? Sure. You want the sorcerer to be able to wield a great sword because it's part of his family lineage, and it would just look awesome to have a sorcerer with a great sword? Perfect. But make sure that the NPCs are always the ones looking up to the player characters. You don't want your player characters to look at your NPCs and be like, man, this guy is so cool. I really wish I could play him. That's not the way it works. They need to look at him and be like, hey, this guy's awesome. But I still wouldn't pick him over my character. So you have to make sure in the style aspect not to make him too flashy before the player characters are flashy. Let's make this straight. Once the party monk is good enough to backflip off a castle wall and just roundhouse kick 3 orcs to the face doing so, sure. Feel free to give the NPC wings and fire-breathing ability. But before that, when the wizard just got his second level spells and he's like, hey, I can shoot fire twice a day. Don't put him next to the guy that costs fire just cuz. So you need to balance that. The last element, of course, is items. Your players are limited in their items to what you are giving them. Same goes for NPCs. How would you feel being like, hey, I worked so hard and I finally got this +1 sword. And then the guy walks in with a crossbow that shoots lightning bolts. The equivalent of a +4 or +5 weapon. You're like, why does he have this? He didn't deserve it. He didn't work for it. He was just born that way. So it's very important to respect these three elements, these psi concepts. Else, your players might get frustrated with your NPCs, especially if they are stuck traveling with them. And every encounter, they're like, yeah, we won, but it's because of NPC Shankalot. He sure knows how to stab people with his amazing sword in his wings and his knife breathing ability. Yes, I said it. He shoots knives out of his mouth. You could actually do that, although you would have to justify it. It'd be pretty painful. So, on this, we'll end the topic of NPCs for now. Do know there will be more topics on NPCs to deal with, first of all, allies, making them way more memorable, and also to make sure that villains will stay interesting. It's very important. Your villains need to be interesting. We'll go over the concepts of getting the villains to be interesting in a future topic. But in the meantime, well, I'm going to wish you a very nice day. And remember, you were born a natural 20. See you next time.